Arthur Vance stood in the center of his silent bakery, the scent of yeast clinging to his apron, feeling the weight of a life that had been systematically dismantled by a single spreadsheet. He had been a man of quiet precision, the kind of person who measured his worth by the early mornings he clocked at a massive food manufacturing plant and the uncredited hours he gave to a company that viewed him as nothing more than a fluctuating integer. His supervisor, a woman named Eleanor Sterling, was the architect of his downfall, a person who moved through the world with the cold efficiency of a machine, dismantling livelihoods without ever raising her voice. When Arthur's mother, Martha, fell critically ill, Arthur did what any decent man would do. He requested a brief leave to sit by her hospital bed, believing his 11 years of unwavering loyalty would serve as a safeguard against the bureaucracy of the office. He was wrong. The morning he returned to finalize his paperwork, Eleanor didn't meet him in a private office. She summoned him to the factory floor, surrounded by the very people he had mentored, and publicly labeled his personal emergency a failure of professional reliability. She stripped him of his position in front of his peers, effectively branding him a liability to the company and casting him out into a town where reputation was a currency that could be spent in a single day. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Arthur wandered for weeks, his savings hemorrhaging as he attempted to care for his mother while facing doors slammed shut by employers who had already heard the distorted version of his departure from Eleanor. He felt the crushing reality of a man who had traded his youth for an institution that replaced him before his office chair had even grown cold. It was during an aimless drive through the industrial edge of the city that he spotted a dilapidated storefront on Miller Avenue, a failed bakery with papered-over windows and a sign signaling the finality of a closed business. He possessed only a fraction of his former financial security, and his mother's health remained a delicate, looming shadow, yet in that moment, he saw a ghost of a dream he had long ago suppressed for the sake of stability. He made the irrational choice to invest his final resources into a dying shop, knowing that if he failed here, he would have nothing left to fall back on. He was betting his entire existence on a craft he had only ever admired from the sidelines, and in doing so, he was defying the logic of the entire town. His mother, tethered to a hospital bed, saw the desperate look in his eyes and asked him a singular, haunting question: if this dream failed, could he live with the knowledge that he had finally tried to build something of his own? He answered that he would rather fail at his own endeavor than succeed at someone else's. The subsequent months were a relentless gauntlet of broken equipment, leaking pipes, and the isolating silence of a shop that no one entered. Arthur worked through the night, soldering frayed wires in antique ovens and learning the temperament of flour by touch alone, his hands permanently stained with the dust of his new reality. He lived on the razor's edge of insolvency, keeping a schedule that defied human endurance while hiding the true extent of his struggle from his mother, who deserved only peace. He was met with skepticism by the locals who still clung to the narrative that he was a man who had walked out on a professional career, and for a long time, the bell above his door remained stubbornly silent. He had to battle the persistent arithmetic in his mind that reminded him daily of his precarious position. However, he remained steadfast, treating every loaf of bread as if it were the only one he would ever bake. He stopped aiming for mere adequacy and began pursuing a standard of excellence that had been missing from his life for a decade. He slowly cultivated a reputation based on the quality of his product rather than the politics of a boardroom, and eventually, the rumors of his departure were replaced by the undeniable taste of something authentic. A turning point arrived when Eleanor Sterling, while conducting a routine market analysis of the area, wandered into Arthur's bakery by chance. She did not recognize him behind the flour-dusted counter, and she didn't bother to look closely, dismissing him with the same condescending laughter she had used to humiliate him on the factory floor. She mocked his new life, implying that this was the inevitable destination for a man who lacked the fortitude to survive under her management. Arthur remained composed, offering her the same professional courtesy he extended to every customer, refusing to engage with her arrogance. He watched her leave, still convinced she had witnessed his total defeat. What she did not know was that a renowned food producer named Julian Thorne had been hearing whispers about the bakery and had recently visited to conduct a private tasting. Julian was a man who had dedicated his life to documenting genuine craftsmanship, and upon tasting Arthur's bread, he immediately recognized a level of dedication he had not encountered in years. He informed Arthur that he intended to feature him in a national broadcast, a decision that would thrust the bakery into the spotlight and irrevocably alter the trajectory of Arthur's life. The days leading up to the filming were marked by a series of near-catastrophic failures that threatened to erase everything Arthur had worked for. His primary oven suffered a final, irreparable collapse, and his ingredient supplier failed to deliver the specific flour he required, leaving him with a subpar substitute only days before the cameras arrived. He did not succumb to the pressure. Instead, he worked through the night, re-engineering his process to accommodate the inferior materials, proving that a true master does not require perfect conditions to produce exceptional work. When the cameras finally rolled, Arthur was physically exhausted, but his bread was perfect. The segment aired to a nationwide audience, transforming his shop into a landmark and proving that his judgment had been sound all along. When Eleanor eventually watched the broadcast from her home, she was forced to confront the reality that the man she had discarded was now the architect of a success she could never have envisioned. She returned to the bakery, not to gloat, but to offer an apology that she had long withheld. Arthur listened to her admission, accepting it not because he owed her relief, but because he was finally the man who did not need to carry the weight of her judgment. He had built something that could withstand the scrutiny of the entire country, and in doing so, he had proven that the only failure that truly matters is the failure to trust in one's own hands.